Kitt Shapiro is the only child of the late, great singer, actress, entertainer Eartha Kitt, who passed away in 2008 at the age of 81. Eartha Kitt, of course, had a legendary career in entertainment spanning over 6 decades. She was the first Black woman to play Catwoman in the iconic 60s Batman series and is immortalized in time for her iconic holiday song, Santa Baby, which has been streamed almost 200 million times on Spotify. Eartha Kitt was groundbreaking, to say the least. But even with all of her success in Hollywood, Eartha Kitt considered her greatest achievement being a mom. She and her daughter Kitt were incredibly close, and just a few months ago, their relationship took center stage when a TikTok post from Kitt went massively viral when she felt compelled to defend her identity. Here's why. The photo you see, take a look, that's Eartha and her biological daughter, Kitt. But because of the very different skin tones throughout Kitt's life, people have questioned whether or not they were really related. Here's some of the highly, I think, insensitive and hurtful comments Kitt received after that TikTok post where she mentioned she was Eartha's daughter. Some people said, "I'm confused. Wasn't Eartha Kitt Black? Oh my gosh, I'm shocked. You're white. Biological daughter, question mark. I cannot be the only one with this question." In the past, Kitt says she has typically chosen not to address these types of comments with a response. But after a lifetime of what she calls pain and scrutiny, this summer, she'd had it. It was finally her time to speak up.
All right, so let's just address the obvious. There are many of you who question whether I am truly my mother's biological child, which is hurtful and insulting, especially since, there's a lot of people out there who don't look the way we think they should look. We have this predetermined idea on how a multiracial human being should appear. I am my mother's biological child. I do look like my mother for people who are willing to see past the blonde hair and the light skin. What can I say? Genetics are a peculiar thing.
Please welcome Kitt Shapiro to the Tam Fam. And you look like your mom. I was perusing social media, and all of a sudden I see Kitt Shapiro's going viral. And I think I said, I bet I know what it is. And I clicked on, and I saw you in that post there. What I didn't know, in the memoir you wrote, you say, there are people who insist that I have had plastic surgery in order to look more Caucasian and pass white. I mean, these people were digging deep.
It is amazing. I mean, people hide behind, as we all know, we've all been victims of some type of trolling or nastiness online. And people they just assume that because you don't, as I mentioned in the TikTok, look the way they think you should look, then you can't possibly be who you say you are. Now, my mother only had one child, yeah. and this is what she got. I'm sorry, that's all. And she actually loved the fact that I was this mutt, she said. She would say to me, you either break every rule or you fill every quota. Oh. She said, you're a walking United Nations. And I truly think that, she was proud. Yeah. She was proud to be the parent of somebody that couldn't be easily identified because she herself had been so stereotyped and so pigeonholed because of her skin color, obviously. I am, to the other extreme, sometimes, criticized because I'm not Black enough, and I can't help the way that I was born.
When did you first start? I mean, as you said, you're your mother's only child, and her great. I had the pleasure of meeting your mom when I was in local news in Chicago. Everything you saw on TV was the real thing. She was very authentic to her core. When did you first start to feel like, okay, people, When was the first time you heard somebody say, is that your mom?
Well, you have to realize, when I was born, my mother was already very famous.
Yes.
And people are more impressed by fame than worried about race. So, they were more impressed that, Eartha Kitt had walked in the room than they were thinking, a woman of color had walked in the room. So there was a lot that wasn't said, that was, you were accepted on a different level when your parent is a famous person.
Right.
So that I didn't really hear of it. My mother often talked about,
what would she
how
say?
she would always talk about the fact that, how beautiful I was. Of course, she was my mother, let's remember that. And I am her only child. And how, how wonderful it is to have, this mixed race, and how mixed race people are so much, more interesting. No offense to everyone who's not, but I think we're all, look, there's one thing I think we should all be able to take a DNA test from birth, because we all would realize how much more mixed up we are.
Henry
We see
Louis
that.
Gates?
Yes.
Oh, boy. When was the first time you remember hurting?
Well, it wasn't really until social media became a thing. So it's after my mother passed. And I had somebody must have been on Facebook, or it was a response to a blog. I have a blog. And it was in response to, you can't possibly be her biological child. She obviously lied to you her entire life, and you were clearly adopted. To which my response was, when do you think a black woman could have adopted a white baby? First of all. I don't care how famous she was.
They weren't exactly doing that back then. Right.
Not in 1961, certainly not.
Right.
And second of all, I mean, my father was as white, pasty, Irish, German Irish as you can
So
get.
here's my father. This happens.
And I think that what I wanted to say, and what I ended up posting, and this was the first time I actually spoke publicly to it, and I reposted this person, not because I really wanted people say, oh, don't worry, you are, to pat me on the back, but to really realize that this conversation happens, a lot.
Yes.
Whether it happens to somebody blatantly or it happens when they walk away behind their back.
Yeah, I've said, listen, my son is of mixed race. He has fair skin. He has curly hair. And he's been on the planet with me 3 years. But of course, I've encountered where people say, oh, is that your da-da-da, And I had braced myself for it when he was born. And full disclosure, the first thing I said was, God, please let his hair be curly. Because I didn't want it to deal with it. Do you know if your mom ever was worried about it?
Well, I don't think my mother worried to that extent. I think she understood that she would be...
Look at that.
that she would be questioned, I mean, yes, when someone would open the door, she'd be seen with me and someone didn't know who she was, they thought she was the nanny or the housekeeper.
Really? So she encountered that?
Yes, I never experienced that as a little girl. I never realized what was happening, I should say.
But it was happening.
But it was definitely happening.
Coming up almost 14 years since the legendary Eartha Kitt's passing, Kitt Shapiro pays tribute to her beloved mom in a beautiful way. You don't want to miss this one. Welcome back. Today we've been talking with people about how they've overcome labels to live authentically in the world. With us is Kitt Shapiro, daughter of the legendary entertainer Eartha Kitt. And those were some exclusive, never-before-seen photos from the family album of Kitt and Eartha that Kitt wanted to share with the Tam fam. First of all, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
What an honor.
We have some incredible photos together. I was with her so much. We traveled together. She always took me everywhere. Yeah, I mean, I worked for her as I got older. And before that, as a little girl, I traveled with her because my mother felt that travel was the most incredible education, seeing the world and how the world really lived and how other people really truly existed.
You talk about in your memoir that your mom, who was also multiracial, had such tragedy in her past, and what she overcame was remarkable. You said, being both illegitimate and of mixed race, my mother was treated as an outcast by almost everyone around. Beneath all of the fame and success, she was still that cotton picker from the South who'd grown up poor, hungry, abused, and rejected.
Yeah.
But she passed away a legend and lived most of her life.
Well, she said that she's taken all of the manure that had been thrown on her and used it as fertilizer.
Wow.
And I think that, I think that she truly was born a survivor.
Yeah.
And she was meant to persevere. And as hard as her childhood was, she took pride in that. And I would say to her sometimes, she would talk about her childhood with a lot of pain and tears, even as, right before she died. But I would say, just let it go, get past it. And she said, why? Why am I ever going to let that go? That's who made me who I am. That is the foundation of what this is.
Talk about things that come at you. You have a story in the book from your childhood. When you were 12 years old, you traveled with your mom to South Africa. And while you were there, she was asked to leave a theme park because it was for white people only. Obviously, apartheid South Africa, the time, but how did she handle that?
So the story, you'll all have to get the book and read the story.
Yeah, I don't want to get too much away.
But the story is so profound because it really was one of the first times that I truly realized that my mother and I looked different. Like, I just assumed, we were mother and daughter. I looked like her. We would look in the mirror together, as mothers and daughters sometimes do, and you would compare, your whatever it was, your features. But this time, this person at the park didn't know who she was, and he didn't realize that she had this, diplomatic status when we were in South Africa, and he asked her to leave. And so she just stood up, and he took my hand, and we went to walk out of the park. And I started saying to her, tell him who you are. Like, he doesn't understand. You need to tell him. Like, I was just really crying. I wanted her to experience. I had been going to the amusement park for the last few days without her. And she said, don't panic. God may not be there when you want him, but he's always on time. And as it turns out, the owner of the amusement park found out that she had been thrown out of the park and was very, very upset and embarrassed that she'd been thrown out of the park. So he said, if there's anything I can do, if you want tickets to the amusement park or whatever I can do for you, Miss Kitt, I'll make it up to you. And so she said, well, we're raising money to build these schools for the African children, so a donation would be wonderful. And my daughter would love tickets. We could come back. She'd like to bring some of her friends. So when we went back to the amusement park, my mother brought 2 children who were what were referred to as colored children, 2 black children, and myself. And my mother felt that this image right here in South Africa at that time made a greater statement than if she had made a scene in the moment.
Wow.
My mother understood that it only takes one person to affect change maybe on one other person.
Yeah.
And that the ripple effect is truly very powerful. It just takes longer.
You talk about your mother's sense of humor. It's been 14 years since she passed away of colon cancer. And you wrote, being able to find laughter in almost every moment was truly a gift, which my mother blessed me with. I have an executive producer, and she always says, so often it's about what we've overcome and the resilience, but we should also make sure our children know our joy.
Yes.
And you knew what she'd overcome and how resilient, but she wanted you to know she was happy.
Yes.
And that she laughed and that she had
and
joy.
And laughed every day and didn't take herself too seriously and encouraged me not to take myself too seriously. And she really felt that, every day there's something to smile about.
Yes.
No matter, it might be very, very minuscule, and we are all going through, and some of us more than others go through really tragic and difficult times. But to be able to find one little sliver of hope and one little sliver of happiness and smile, and maybe it's your own smile that helps you, and maybe it will help somebody else. And my mother was really good at giving me that foundation, and I'm truly blessed by it.
I love that.